Hello everyone, we are playing pure chess and we're in the main menu. We're going to go to chess challenges, top right hand corner, tackling bonus games, and we're handling mate in 5, and we're taking care of problem number 11. Now, as always, if you'd like and you need some time, hit pause and look at this if you haven't already. Okay, this is one of these. It looks easy, and you can think of all these different ways to get mate in a little more than 5. Uh, but it's kind of complicated. So we got to figure out how to solve this. Now, one of the hints I would drop before we go into detail of all the position is, and I've said this before on the mate in 5 ones, is a lot of times the key to this is looking for a series of checks. Now, which series is a good question, but looking for a series of checks that can simplify and reduce the number of variations, the number of moves we have to make. At least that's what I found a key to solving this. So let's start out with black. Black has a king on h5. Okay. Uh, it really only has one flight square, that being h4, because, well, we've got a queen, and our queen blocks, h6, g6, g5, and g4. So yeah, we've kind of got him boxed in, but we kind of don't. And it's a 5 move thing. There's a lot of different pieces that are protecting certain pieces. Let's say, our knight, or not, sorry, our rook, the rook right here on d5 could be exposed if we don't put the king in check or protect it with a queen. So we could either, one variation is we play queen takes e5. I've tried that. That doesn't work. And then try to pivot. Because what black would do is black would block with a rook. And then we use the queen to pivot. But that variation was not successful for me. I've also tried playing rook to d1 to double up the rooks. But the real trick is getting. It sounds similar in face value, but it's a little complicated. It's getting this king boxed in and getting that checkmate. So how exactly do we do that? Well, like I said, we've got this rook on d5. We've got a rook. We got a rook on b1. I don't know that that's a major factor here because of the. It's going to use up a lot of moves to get into position. A minimum of 2 moves most of the time. We've got a couple pawns. F1, G1, H1. And of course, black has a rook on F8. It's decent position. It has a queen on D8. It has a bishop on C8. And that bishop is going to block a lot of the variations of what we play and have some problems. It's also got this bishop on B4, which covers, the E1 square and presents problems because we can't play like queen takes. We can't play like queen takes rook sacrifice. As there's a lot of moves that are being blocked. If you tried them, or if you have already tried them, you kind of know what I'm talking about here. If you haven't, you'll find out shortly. So a best move, like I said, is a series of checks. What we'd like to do is get this rook out of the way from being taken in one move. So we're gonna play a rook takes e5, and then we're removing obstruction. So we're gonna play rook takes pawn e5 check. Okay, nothing exciting. You know, black blocks with the bishop, plays bishop to f5. Now, what we need to do is get the king moving down the H and G files. So we're going to use our queen to do that, and then we got to figure out if we can get a checkmate here. So we're going to play queen take queen to h7 check. And remember, the bishop cannot take our queen because the bishop is pinned. And we want the king to move back, so we're going to simply play queen to g7 check. Good. Now we've got black's king back to h4. A lot of the time, the thought process would be, let's play rook takes b4 check. That variation will not get to check in 5. Because basically black will just go back to h5, and then we'll have to try to do a series of checks, and we'll run out of moves. So that's why this doesn't work. You know, if we had more moves, you know, maybe we could make it work, but not in the shortened time frame we have. So we're gonna play simply. We need to put the king in check, keep pressure on. There's the queen. There's the rook. We're going to play with the queen. We're taking the queen to h6 check. Okay. Black is on g4. Now what we need to do is figure out how to get checkmate. And this one is tricky. If you may see it, you may not. If you'd like, hit pause again. See if you can figure out the move. If not, that's okay too. We'll cover it, obviously. Okay. Black's king surrounded. Let's see. Yes, it is. We have a queen on h6, as we've noted. And it covers every flight square except for the f3 and g3 squares, which are covered by the pawns we have. So we have to figure out how to get checkmate here. One possibility is playing rook takes b4 check. Problem is, black can block. And with more than one way, black block with the queen or the bishop, because the bishop's not pinned right now. The bishop was pinned, but when we moved the king with a series of checks, the bishop became unpinned. So that bishop's free to move. We can't really put the king, the queen in any spot that would get a checkmate. So we play queen to h3 check. Black still has, you know, the f4 flight square open and the g5. So that doesn't work. The simplest in this move is it looks so obvious after you see it, but sometimes it's a little hard to see. It's a tricky one. So remember that, you know, queen's got everything covered here except for g3, h3. But oh, by the way, those are covered by these pieces here. So what we need is a piece that will create checkmate, and that looks like to be the pawn on h2. We will pawn h2 to h3. That'd be checkmate because the g2 pawn is protecting it. So we're going to play pawn to h3 check, and it's going to be checkmate. Problem solved. Just like that, because it basically covers all the flight squares that black could have in the spot. Again, this is one of the trickier problems. Hopefully I gave a decent analysis for you to understand how to solve it. But more importantly, I would want to emphasize the line of thinking here on these mate and 5 chess challenges. And the line of thinking I think that usually solves most of these is to try to look for a series of checks that really simplify your decision-making process and eliminate a lot of the deep variations. Because the more variations you go into, you're not going to be able to solve these type of problems more than likely. Now, variations aren't necessarily bad if you're playing a chess game against another opponent, but we're talking about solving these specific problems here. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on it, and that pretty much wraps this up. I am signing out, and I'd like to thank you for watching.